Know anything? Can you tell us a little bit about what will happen to normal Norma?
I can't tell you too much, but only that she gets
A beautiful blonde actress and a legendary music producer meet on a sailboat in the Bahamas.
a little wild, a little wilder.
Maybe a new love interest, I hear?
Maybe.
Sounds like a perfect Hollywood romance, right? But what if I told you that behind this fairy tale wedding was a secret so shocking that it stayed hidden for almost 30 years? Today, we're diving deep into the untold story of Peggy Lipton and Quincy Jones, a love that captured hearts around the world, but hid a painful truth that would eventually break them apart. The year was 1969. Peggy Lipton was 22 years old and already famous across America. Every Tuesday night, millions of people tuned in to watch her play Julie Barnes on a groundbreaking TV show called The Mod Squad. She was young, beautiful, and talented. Her face was on magazine covers. Fashion stores were selling clothes inspired by her style. Young women everywhere wanted to look just like her. She had everything most people dream about. But inside, Peggy was struggling with demons that nobody could see. Let's go back to where it all began. Peggy was born in New York City in 1946. From the outside, her family looked perfect. They had money, education, and respect. Her dad was a successful lawyer who went to Harvard. Her mom came from an artistic family. They lived in one of the fanciest neighborhoods you could imagine. But behind closed doors, things were very different. Peggy grew up in a home where appearances mattered more than truth, where looking good was more important than feeling good, and where secrets were buried deep. When Peggy was just 7 years old, something terrible happened. She developed a stutter so bad that sometimes she couldn't even say her own name. Imagine being a little kid and feeling like your own voice is trapped inside you. School became a nightmare. Every time a teacher called on her, she would freeze up. The other kids would stare. She felt humiliated over and over again. But the adults around her didn't understand what was really going on. They thought it was just a phase that would go away. They never connected it to the pain she was carrying inside. The truth was, her stutter was her body's way of showing the emotional hurt she couldn't talk about. Peggy became a sad and quiet child. She started having dark thoughts that no kid should ever have. She would think about death and even hold her breath to imagine what dying might feel like. Can you imagine how lonely and scared she must have felt? She was trapped in her own silence, unable to tell anyone what was really wrong. But then something changed when she turned 15. Her father helped her get signed to a famous modeling agency. Suddenly, this girl who could barely speak without stuttering was having her picture taken for fashion magazines all across the country. She was tall and pretty with long blonde hair and big brown eyes. On the outside, she looked like she was living a dream. But on the inside, she was still fighting the same battles. To cope with her pain, she started using drugs like marijuana and cocaine. She also took diet pills to stay thin. The world saw a glamorous teenage model. But Peggy saw a girl who was falling apart. In 1964, when she was 18, her family moved to Los Angeles. This was a huge turning point. Peggy left home and moved to a place called Topanga Canyon, where hippies and artists lived. She dove into a whole new lifestyle with yoga, meditation, and music festivals. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. She was around people who looked and thought like her. It felt like freedom. But for someone carrying so much pain, that freedom could also be dangerous. Around this same time, Peggy started getting acting jobs. There was just one problem. Acting meant talking, and talking meant dealing with her stutter. She would freeze up on set and pretend she forgot her lines. But here's the amazing thing. When she read words from a script, she could speak perfectly. It was like playing someone else gave her a voice she never had in real life. The movie studios put her in whatever roles they wanted, and she had no choice but to say yes. That's just how things worked back then. For the next few years, Peggy appeared on lots of TV shows. Each role helped her gain more experience and get noticed by more people. Then in 1968, everything changed. she got cast in a new show called The Mod Squad. Her character was named Julie Barnes, a young woman who had run away from a troubled home and got arrested. Julie had been through terrible things, just like Peggy had in real life. Maybe that's why Peggy's performance felt so real and honest. She wasn't just acting, she was bringing her own pain to the screen. The show became a massive hit. It was different from anything else on TV at that time. The characters were young hippies who worked undercover as police officers. They didn't carry guns. They solved problems by being smart and understanding people. The show talked about serious issues like racism, war, violence, and police brutality, things that other shows were too scared to mention. It also had one of the first mixed-race casts on primetime television. People loved it. Peggy's performance was so good that she got nominated for 4 Emmy Awards in a row. She also got 4 Golden Globe nominations. Then in 1971, when she was just 24 years old, she actually won the Golden Globe for Best Actress. She was one of the youngest actresses ever to win that award. It was an incredible achievement. Her style became a national trend. Women everywhere wanted hair like hers, clothes like hers, and the confidence she seemed to have. But here's the sad truth. Peggy didn't feel confident at all. Fame made her paranoid and anxious. She barely left her house. She dreaded talking to reporters. The attention that other people craved made her want to hide. During these years, Peggy dated some very famous men. She had a relationship with Paul McCartney from the Beatles when she was just 18. She briefly dated Elvis Presley. She was involved with other celebrities and musicians. But she later admitted that these relationships weren't really about love. They were more like fantasies. She was dating men who couldn't really be there for her emotionally. Deep down, she felt incredibly lonely, even though millions of people adored her. Now here's where our story really begins. In the summer of 1969, Peggy took a trip to the Bahamas. A friend had arranged for her to go sailing, and on that boat was a man named Quincy Jones. Quincy was already famous in the music world. He was a talented producer and musician who had worked with some of the biggest names in the business. There was just one major problem. He was married. He had a wife back home named Ulla Anderson. Peggy felt an instant connection to Quincy. She later said it was like a quiet certainty inside her that she couldn't explain. But she also knew there was no point in getting her hopes up. He was married, and that was that. So she kept her feelings to herself. The day on the sailboat ended, and they went their separate ways. But Peggy never forgot him. That moment stayed with her for years. Life went on. Peggy continued working on the Mod Squad and dating other men. She was linked to Elvis and Ryan O'Neal, among others. But in the back of her mind, she always remembered Quincy. Then in 1974, 5 whole years after that day in the Bahamas, Peggy heard some gossip. People were saying that Quincy had separated from his wife. Her heart jumped. Maybe now was the right time. She reached out to him through his daughter Jolie. She wanted to see if he remembered her and if he might be interested. Jolie came back with a funny message. She told Peggy that she was in the top 10 list of women Quincy was interested in. Peggy must have been a little disappointed at first. But then Quincy added something that changed everything. He said, "But you have a bullet, baby." That meant she was moving up fast to number 1. Within 2 weeks of reconnecting, Peggy had moved into Quincy's house in Los Angeles. She even learned how to cook before moving in, because Quincy had said he couldn't trust a woman who couldn't cook. That might sound old-fashioned to us now, but that's how things were back then. Quincy brought his work home with him, too. He installed a machine in their bedroom so he could work on music scores for movies without being far away from her. They were falling deeply in love. But just as their relationship was getting serious, something terrifying happened. Quincy was 41 years old when he suffered 2 brain aneurysms. These are like explosions in your bra, and that can kill you in seconds. The first one hit him without any warning while he was at home with Peggy. He said it felt like someone had shot him in the back of the head. Peggy rushed him to the hospital. Doctors operated on him for 7.5 hours. They managed to fix the damage. But then they found another aneurysm that was about to burst. They had to operate again immediately. They actually had to remove part of his skull and put it back with metal clips. Quincy's condition was so serious that his friends started planning his funeral. He later said it felt like he had attended his own memorial service while he was still alive. The surgeries saved his life, but they ended his career as a trumpet player. The pressure from playing the instrument could kill him. While he was recovering from these life-threatening surgeries, he and Peggy decided to get married. Their bond had been tested by the possibility of death, and they wanted to make it official. They got married on September 14th, 1974. It should have been a moment of pure happiness, but instead, they faced immediate backlash. You see, Peggy was white and Quincy was black. Even though this was the 1970s, racism was still very much alive in America. Interracial couples faced discrimination everywhere they went. Peggy wrote in her autobiography that police officers would pull them over all the time. They assumed that Peggy, a blonde white woman, must be a prostitute being forced into Quincy's car. It happened so often that they started expecting it every time they drove together. But the racism didn't just come from strangers. It came from Peggy's own mother. Her mom openly said she couldn't imagine her daughter being with a black man or having mixed-race children. She had pictured Peggy marrying a white prince or a successful Jewish man. Peggy finally had to give her mother an ultimatum. She told her mom that she had to accept the relationship or lose her daughter completely. That stopped the open criticism, but the hurt never really went away. In March of 1974, Peggy and Quincy had their first daughter, Kidada. 2 years later, in February of 1976, their second daughter Rashida was born. Having two mixed-race daughters in the 1970s wasn't easy. These little girls would face prejudice and confusion about where they fit in. Peggy's mother only started to soften after she met her granddaughters. As the girls grew up, they each struggled with their identity in different ways. Kidada eventually left her mostly white private school and went to a mostly black public high school where she felt more comfortable. Rashida first dealt with racial tension when she went to Harvard University. Both girls eventually became successful in their own careers, but their childhood wasn't simple. When the Mod Squad ended in 1973, Peggy made a shocking decision. She was 27 years old and at the peak of her career. She could have gone on to star in movies and other TV shows for decades. Instead, she walked away completely. She decided to focus on raising her daughters. She later said she was burned out from 5 years of constant work. She had become withdrawn and insecure from all the attention. She wanted to be present for her children in a way her own mother hadn't been for her. Peggy's break from Hollywood lasted 15 years. The only exception was when she returned in 1979 for a TV movie called The Return of the Mod Squad. By then, Kidada was 5 and Rashida was 3. Peggy was deeply focused on being a full-time mom. She turned down countless offers that could have made her millions of dollars. But she didn't care about the money. She cared about her family. Meanwhile, Quincy's career was exploding. He produced Michael Jackson's album Off the Wall in 1979. Then in 1982, he produced Thriller, which became the best-selling album of all time. Quincy was traveling constantly, working with the biggest stars in the world, and dealing with enormous pressure. Peggy was at home raising their daughters. Their lives were moving in completely different directions. From the outside, they looked like the perfect Hollywood couple, but by the mid-1980s, cracks were starting to show. Quincy later said he was dealing with 7 of the 10 most stressful life events all at the same time. His work was draining him. His mother was sick. The pressure at home was building. Peggy, who had given up her entire career to support him, was also feeling the weight of everything. Their beautiful home that had once been filled with love started to feel tense. They argued more. They drifted apart emotionally. In 1986, after 12 years of marriage, they separated. Kidada was 12 and Rashida was 10. To the public, the news was shocking. Everyone thought they were still madly in love, but the truth was, they had been falling apart for years. During their 3-year separation, Peggy raised the girls while Quincy continued his demanding work schedule. On October 10, 1989, Peggy officially filed for divorce. The papers said they had irreconcilable differences. The divorce was finalized in 1990, ending one of Hollywood's most famous interracial marriages. But here's where the hidden truth finally comes out. In 2018, almost 30 years after their divorce, Quincy gave an interview that shocked everyone. He was 84 years old by then, and apparently felt it was time to be honest. He revealed that during his marriage to Peggy, he had 22 girlfriends around the world. 22. He named cities from Cape Town to Shanghai. He claimed that all these women knew about each other. He even said his daughters had to set an age limit for the women he dated because some of them were younger than his own daughters. Think about what this means. For 15 years, while Peggy was at home raising their children, sacrificing her career, and dealing with racism from society and her own family, Quincy was having affairs with nearly 24 women. She had given up everything for him and their family, and he had betrayed her over and over again. The pain she must have felt is unimaginable. The divorce also deeply affected their daughters. After the split, Kidada chose to live with Quincy, while Rashida stayed with Peggy. This meant the two sisters grew up apart from each other. They had very different experiences growing up in separate households. Rashida later said the split was hard, but that her parents stayed close, which helped. Even so, birthdays and holidays became complicated. The family that had once been together was now divided. In 1988, after 15 years away from acting, Peggy returned to television. She had left in 1973 to be a mom, but now she was ready to work again. Her comeback role was in a TV movie where she played an assistant district attorney. She was 41 years old, which was considered old for a leading lady in Hollywood. But she proved she could still carry a strong role. Then in 1990, she got the part that would define the rest of her life. Director David Lynch cast her as Norma Jennings in Twin Peaks. Norma was the warm-hearted owner of a diner famous for its coffee and cherry pie. Fans fell in love with her romance with a character named Big Ed. The role was perfect for Peggy. It matched her real personality in a way that fame never had before. For many people, Julie Barnes from the Mod Squad faded away and was replaced by Norma Jennings. Peggy continued acting in the 1990s and 2000s. She appeared in various TV shows, proving she could adapt to changing times. In 2017, she even acted alongside her daughter Rashida in a comedy show called Angie Tribeca. She played Rashida's mother on screen, bringing their real-life relationship into their work. By this time, Rashida had become successful in her own right, appearing in shows like The Office and Parks and Recreation. Kidada had also built a career in entertainment. Both daughters had grown into strong, successful women. In 2005, Peggy published her memoir called Breathing Out. The book was 310 pages long and completely honest. She didn't hold anything back. She talked about her relationships with Paul McCartney and Elvis Presley. She revealed painful experiences with sexual abuse, affairs, and an abortion. She wrote about facing racist backlash during her marriage to Quincy. She admitted how insecure she felt during her biggest success. The book became a bestseller because it showed the real Peggy, not the glamorous image people thought they knew. In 2004, at age 58, Peggy was diagnosed with colon cancer. This was a terrifying moment. She had just finished performing in a stage production of the Vagina Monologues. Suddenly, she was facing a life-threatening disease. She went through surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. It was brutal, but Peggy fought hard and beat the cancer. Her daughter Rashida said the experience brought the whole family closer together. It would be another 15 years before the cancer came back. Even though Peggy and Quincy divorced in 1989, they stayed close friends. This is actually pretty remarkable considering everything that had happened. They had been married for 15 years and separated for 3 more before making it official. But they never let their personal issues hurt their daughters. They co-parented with unusual warmth and kindness. They worked together on family matters as if they had never split up. In 2018, Rashida told a reporter that their closeness made everything easier because it came from real love. When Peggy got sick again, Quincy was there for her. On May 11th, 2019, Peggy Lipton died at home. She was 72 years old. Her daughters Kidada and Rashida were by her side, along with several nieces. Her daughters said she passed peacefully and called her their beacon of light. The colon cancer she had beaten 15 years earlier had returned and spread throughout her body. When news of her death came out, tributes poured in from all over Hollywood. Co-stars, friends, and fans shared memories of the beautiful, talented woman who had touched so many lives. Quincy Jones released a statement calling their love eternal. Despite everything that had happened, despite the affairs and the betrayal, despite the pain and the divorce, there was still love between them. That's the complicated truth about their relationship. It wasn't a simple story of good versus evil. It was a messy, human story about two people who loved each other deeply but couldn't make it work. Looking back at Peggy Lipton's life, you can see a pattern of strength and survival. From the little girl who couldn't speak without stuttering, to the teenage model struggling with depression, to the famous actress who gave up her career for family, to the divorced mother who found her way back to acting, to the cancer survivor who fought until the very end. Peggy lived a life full of pain, but she also lived a life full of courage. The hidden truth behind her marriage to Quincy Jones isn't just about his infidelity. It's about the sacrifices women of that generation were expected to make. It's about how Peggy gave up everything for love and family while her husband continued building his empire. It's about how she faced racism, betrayal, and heartbreak, but still managed to raise two incredible daughters. It's about how she found the strength to return to her career and create new memories for fans to cherish. Peggy Lipton's story reminds us that the people we see on screen are real human beings with real struggles. Behind the beautiful smile and perfect hair was a woman who had been hurt deeply but refused to give up. She turned her pain into art. She used her experiences to create characters that felt real and honest. She showed the world that it's possible to survive terrible things and still find moments of joy and success. If you found this story as powerful as I did, please hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about strength and survival. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we bring you the untold stories behind Hollywood's biggest stars. Stories that remind us we're all human, we all struggle, and we all have the power to keep going even when life gets hard. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.